Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Mitchell's Childhood Memories, Part 6. Today I have the great honor of talking about my amazing siblings, my brother Norman and my sister Stephanie. I was an only child until I was about 9 years old. And because of that, I was really excited when my mom said she was pregnant and a baby brother was on the way. And when Norman was born, I was so excited. I played with him so much, but I came to realize something that when I was alone, I was the center of attention. When the new baby came along, he was the center of attention. So I think some jealousy sprouted in me. And 2 years later, when my mom told me that my sister she was pregnant again, I was not so excited. Another attention stealer was going to be on the loose. But actually, once Stephanie was born, she was. I loved her, and I loved Norman so much. They were so dear for me, and I hope I was a very good brother to them. I remember one of my first memories was teaching them how to walk. We had a very narrow hallway in our little apartment in Brooklyn, and what I would do is I would first Norman and then Steffi. I would hold them up, stand them up, hold their hands, then move a few inches away, and they would try to walk towards me. They would fall. We'd do it again. Eventually, they reached me. I moved a few inches more away, and before you know it, by the end of the another hour or so, they were walking. My technique worked for both Norman and Steffi. Once Steffi came, it became obvious our apartment was too crowded. So a couple of years later, we moved into a house, also on Wortman Avenue, but about 5-minute walk from our apartment. In this house, we had three bedrooms. There was one for my mom and dad, a tiny one for me, and a large bedroom for Norman and Steffi. And I remember playing with them so many times, and I created nicknames. Anyway, I was called the Champ, and my brother was called the Brain, and my sister Steffi was called the Fox. And I remember when she was about 3 years old, 4 years old, and we would pretend that she had superpowers. She'd walk into the room, and Norman and I would scream, the fox," and she'd chase us, and she would just touch us, and we would fall down as if we were unconscious. So she thought she had superpowers. As they grew older, a rivalry developed between them, and I would say competition, and maybe some of that competition is still there to this very, very day. But in that competition, I sided with my sister. Of course, I'm going to side with how can you not side with your younger sister? So one thing we did, for example, I would take a jar with a very tight lid, and I would challenge my brother to open it, and he wasn't able to. Then I attempted to open it, and I couldn't do it. And then I gave it to my baby sister, and she opened it. And to the consternation of my brother, he couldn't understand. He was both angry and confused. How could this little skinny little girl open the jar and he couldn't? Never to this day did he figure out that it was because actually I loosened it for her and made it quite easy. So the brain never figured that out. As Steffi grew and became 9 years old, she lobbied to get her own room. I mean, she was growing up. She was coming close to being a teenager. She wanted her own privacy. So the switch was made. I moved into her bed with Norm, and I moved into her room, and she moved into my room. But to Stephanie's surprise, having your own room had some disadvantages. She felt lonely. Sometimes at night she felt frightened. And sometimes she had bad dreams. And it was a very big problem. But she couldn't admit that she was wrong. She couldn't come back to get her bed, because that would be a humiliation in the eyes of her brother. So she came over to me, and we came up with a plan. And that was, whenever Steffi felt fear, or she had a bad dream, or felt lonely, what we did was, after Norman fell asleep, I would come and get her, and she would come into my bed, sleep with me, so she had security, And then in the early morning, I would wake her up and put her back into her bed. And Norman woke up and never knew the difference. And we pulled that stunt off for a long, long, long time, and the brain never figured it out. I'd like to say that now that they've grown up, first like to talk about my sister Steffi. If ever there would be a Nobel Prize for loving, caring, compassionate person who goes out of her way to help a person, my sister would win it hands down. She's the type of person that can never say no. Anyone who needs help, anyone has a problem, Steffi is there for them. She's just amazing. Now this has led to her having a pretty chaotic life at times. You can imagine she doesn't have really enough time for herself and her own priorities, but that's her nature. Her nature is to help. Her nature is to be a loving person, and she's there for everyone. She is just, in my eyes, the most amazing. Her 60th birthday passed recently, and I suggested to her husband Larry we should have a birthday party for her. But Larry said to me, Mitchell, if we have a birthday party for all of Stephanie's friends and all the people she's helped, we'd have to rent out a whole football stadium, so it's not possible. Next, I'd like to talk about my brother Norm. Just one story that illustrates his character very well. When Norman was in 5th grade, he went to PS 273, the same school that I went to, and he entered the science fair. Now, my brother worked on a project so hard. He was a brain, but he was not really the best in technology or science. But still, my brother worked so hard and actually built a robot. Think of it, he's like 11 years old. He built a robot that actually worked with a remote control, and it actually walked. It was an amazing feat that he did. It was extraordinary. And he entered it in the science fair. In fact, I was going to university, but I was off that day. So myself and my mom, we came to the science fair, and we saw Norman's project, and we thought it was by far the best. But then the winner was announced, and it wasn't Norman. And it was a boy named Brian. And he had a project which I thought far inferior. He just took a piece of white cardboard paper. He drew a building very roughly and wrote factory. Then you saw a bunch of chimneys coming from the factory, and it would land in a little stream, and the stream would go by a house. And there was something like help the environment or something like that. But it looked like something that was put together in a few minutes, and when Norman worked for days and days and days on that. But he won. We came home, and my mom and I were very upset about it. Brian's mother was the head of the school board, so we thought, wow, the fix was in. We complained. My brother Norman never complained, and I asked him why. And he said, well, there's a school fair the next year. He'll still be in the school, and he aimed for that. And he worked, and he made another invention called Jacob's Ladder. It was like a little ladder with electrical bulbs on it, and he had flickering lights going up and down, and he won the science fair. And that is a great example of my brother Norman. He never played the blame game. He never played the victim game. He just, coming second, made him determined to come first the next year. And now I want you to know that my brother Norman is a very, very successful businessman. In fact, one of the most successful businessmen in America. He has a company named Ratco, which provides affordable housing for thousands and thousands of Americans. And he runs a company the same way. If ever business is bad or something goes wrong, he doesn't complain. He doesn't play a victim game. Rather, he gets more determined he sees it as an opportunity to do better and to improve. And that was a great lesson for me. And I think it should be a great lesson for the examples of my brother and sister should be a great lesson for everyone here. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for listening.